Hello, everyone, and welcome to this public meeting for our annual research project solicitation. Just going to give it another minute or two to let people join. Just note this meeting is being recorded. I'm going to ask you all to remain muted for most of the meeting. I will be giving a presentation, sort of a general presentation about how to apply for the solicitation. And then the individual contract managers will go over the individual projects. And then we will open it up for questions. So you can ask questions about the specific projects. All right, I'm going to close the waiting room so people can just join at will. And I'm going to share my screen so we can get started. So can folks confirm, maybe Pat or Nargis, that you can see the slides in presentation mode? Yeah, I see Barbara nodding. Okay, great. Thank you. All right, so I'm going to get started. So welcome everyone, and thank you for joining this public meeting. CARB has identified its priority research projects for funding year 24-25. The research program informs CARB's air quality and climate programs with sound science. And the research projects we intend to fund this year were chosen through a publicly informed process and approved by the Executive Office earlier this year. The projects cover topics related to toxics, health, the impacts of our programs, the links between climate and health, and mobile sources. We have provided several online tools to help guide you in the application process. We will highlight these tools throughout the meeting and post links in the chat to find them. Finally, we have made changes to our program to focus on equity and how we set our research priorities and on what types of projects we fund. More on that can be found in the triennial plan and on our website. So for projects focused on equity, we highly encourage researchers to work with community organizations when community engagement is a part of the research. These efforts improve the science and lead to better outcomes for communities most impacted by air quality, climate, and transportation access issues. So we're looking forward to this year's projects and to working with you on this research. So again, this is a reminder that this meeting right now is to talk about 3 projects that we are funding in fiscal year 24-25. So we're just talking about these 3 projects and the application process. And in order to qualify to apply for these projects in the solicitation, the principal investigator needs to be a researcher affiliated with the University of California or a California State University. Researchers that are part of community-based organizations or other universities outside of the UCs and CSUs or any other private research firm or organization can be subcontractors, but you cannot be the main principal investigator. All right. So with that, we'll kick it off. I'm going to give a little bit of a broad overview of the research programs first. So CARB's research program priorities are driven by CARB incentive and regulatory program needs. Additionally, research priorities remain responsive to the triennial plan, internal and external coordination, and emerging topics identified through external input and the scientific literature. Each year, the research program funds new projects that are responsive to these identified priorities. And we have a variety of project types. Our extramural research contracts consist of scientifically robust projects that are highly responsive to CARB's priorities and mission. We also fund white paper projects to collect the latest information available on emerging topics, and we fund community-driven research roadmap projects in response to community concerns. We coordinate with large external research efforts in collaboration with other state and federal agencies to make our research dollars go further. Finally, CARB experts also develop in-house projects, leveraging data collected through extramural research, and we collect data, develop models, and write highly impactful scientific papers. Projects are completed by leading scientists and community researchers in collaboration with community-based organizations, by experts in state, national, and international organizations, and also by CARB staff. The research results derived through these various efforts really inform CARB programs and help advance our mission to protect public health and the environment. CARB creates strategic research plans to aid us in our planning and outreach efforts. The most recent plan was the Triennial Strategic Research Plan, and this covered fiscal years 2021 through 2024. Each plan is developed through a public process, and this year we have already kicked off our annual comment and concept collection survey with an additional third option to submit research priorities for the next 5 years. That'll inform the upcoming 5-year plan. So if you submitted a concept or a comment through that survey earlier this year, it has been recorded and we are considering it along with all the other engagement efforts around creating this new plan. So our strategic research plans lay out the future research priorities that are informed both by the public process and CARB's mission and jurisdiction. And the plan helps us strategically plan for research priorities based on future programmatic needs, upcoming regulations, or upcoming air quality or climate goals. Okay, so finally, these plans provide details and clarity on our planning process and helps guide the public and all public partners in collaborating with us. So again, we've started creating a 5-year plan that will cover years 2025 through 2030. So if you're already signed up for the research activities listserv, which you probably heard about this meeting through that listserv, then you will also hear about upcoming opportunities to comment on this strategic research plan. So that's more of a general note for all of you who are interested in our overall process. And we do have a few 5-year plan engagement opportunities coming up. We already did the comment concept survey earlier this year. And if you're interested, you can reach out to us if you're interested in maybe joining topical meetings. But in the fall, later this year, we'll have a public meeting to talk about proposed research initiatives. And in the winter or early spring of the coming year, we'll have a full draft plan available for the public to have a 30-day comment period. And you can also submit comments to the public docket on the proposed plan. And then hopefully in early 2025, we'll have a board hearing to present that plan. Okay, well, enough about the plan. Now let's get back to the topic at hand, which is the individual annual projects that we are funding as part of our fiscal year 24-25 annual research plan. So this meeting today is to help kick off the solicitation of 3 projects. We had a solicitation earlier this year, and we presented 4 other projects at that solicitation. And so we had said that we had a few more projects that were coming down the pipeline, and these are them. So we have one titled Empowering Vulnerable Communities with Low-Cost Sensors and Air Filtration Devices. The next project is titled Quantifying Health Benefits, Ecosystem Service Benefits, and Other Impacts of California's Urban Green Spaces, and Impacts of Non-Exhaust Particles in Vulnerable Communities Exposed to Higher Traffic Emissions, Exposure Assessments, and Health Risks. All right, so hopefully you're all interested in applying for those projects. So some really important dates. We have been asking for the past couple of years for people to send us letters of interest. So the one for these projects is due next Monday. It's very simple. All you have to do is email us at the research@arb.ca.gov email. Please tell me your name, your affiliation, and any other information you want to give me, but basically that you're interested in applying for this project and you're putting together a team. If you do have a sense of who your team members are or who you'd like to approach, or any details that you feel like sharing, feel free, but really I just need a confirmation of who's interested in applying. So if there's any project that doesn't have a lot of interest, then we know we need to do more outreach. So it's really, really appreciated if you do let us know. It's optional, but it is very helpful to us. All right. Your pre-proposals are due Monday, August 12th. They also can be emailed to the research@arb.ca.gov email account. By September 2nd, we hope to notify all pre-proposal submitters of the status of their application. And then Monday, September 23rd, full proposals would be due. So we will choose a top pre-proposal for each project, and just those top pre-proposals would be prompted to develop more full-length proposals. And then we would expect these projects to kick off next year, 2025 timeframe. All right, so the pre-proposals have various requirements. There is a pre-proposal template on our website. I'll drop the link in once we start going over the individual projects. But basically, we want you to use that template, of course. Your pre-proposal section, where you describe how you are going to address the prompts in the scope of work that we're providing to you, should not exceed 5 pages. That doesn't have to include the references. So the references can be beyond the 5 pages, but your approach for conducting the research, that should not exceed 5 pages. So a few tips here. The scope of work for each of these projects includes a very detailed ask of what we're looking for. It also has a scoring criteria at the end, so you get a sense of how we're scoring these projects. And we ask that you please not copy the solicitation text that we provide in the scope of work description. We also ask you to provide a CV or a statement of qualifications for the entire project team. This does not count towards those 5 pages, so again, that's a separate attachment. We'd like you to describe some of your relevant experience. We ask for a preliminary budget, and we provide a template table like this one on the slide. So very simple, straightforward. It just has to be an estimate of what that budget would include. And then I think for all 3 of these projects, we ask for a cultural competency statement. So we have some prompts in the pre-proposal template that explains what we're looking for. And in some cases, a community engagement plan. So please read those scope of work documents very closely. They are all on our website, the scopes of work. All right, so a note here about equity deliverables. So we have some things that are common to all projects. We do ask that everyone on your team receive racial equity training or implicit bias training or similar within the first few months of contract execution. So this would apply to the folks whose pre-proposals reach the top and we ask them to develop a full proposal. And then if they're, once the contract is executed, then that's the time to make sure that you've done your annual racial equity training. And your institution should be providing these kinds of trainings. It should be pretty easy to access that at your institution. We do ask you to create plain language outreach materials. We also ask for simple updates for our website. And in the final report, we have equity implications and a plain language summary that are required. And then if an equity analysis is required, then an equity expert should be part of the team. So please pay attention to the scoring criteria and the scope of work where it specifies what kind of team members we're expecting you to have. We also expect that any peer-reviewed articles are publicly available, so there shouldn't be a paywall for people to read your literature. So you should make sure to include that in your budgeting. And then final seminars should be geared towards a wide audience. So using more plain language in your slides, for example, would be a way to address that. And as I said, we have additional deliverables as part of your pre-proposal, which include a cultural competency statement, and in some cases, a community engagement plan. So please do check the requirements for the individual project scope of work that we're providing on our website. Okay, so here's a few notes on contracting. We do contracts and not grants. So our contracts means that we have pretty specific language in our contracts, and you have to fulfill those requirements if you contract with us. We are required by the Health and Safety Code to look for expertise in the UCs and the CSUs. We already have negotiated a 27% overhead rate. And just a note, on our solicitation landing page, there is a frequently asked questions PDF document that has a lot of questions and answers on contracting and these kinds of details. So as I mentioned earlier, subcontractors can come from any other university, private research institution or firm, or community-based organization, but there are some limitations. Subcontractors that are not a UC or a CSU can receive up to 25% of the budget or $50,000, whichever is less. In some cases, if it can really be justified that there's no state service that can provide the expertise, then in some cases, 50% can be awarded to a subcontractor. But again, the justification has to be very strong for it to be approved by the Department of General Services. All right. Here's another important point to pay attention to. We have advisory board transparency rules. And so no members or alternates to advisory board members who are appointed by the California Air Resources Board of CARB advisory groups can be signatories to the contract or even communicate with CARB regarding CARB's decision on the contracts that we're talking about today, like the 3 contracts, without significant legal risk per government code 87104. So these are the advisory boards that are affected. In the FAQ, I provide links so that you can make sure that no one on that list is someone you are intending to work with. And we have a little attestation memo on the pre-proposal template stating that you checked to make sure that no one you're working with is an advisory board member or alternate for any of these advisory boards. That's very important to check. Okay, so next we're going to be going over the individual projects that we're talking about today. Before I do that, actually, let me point you or show you what the website looks like. And go to the solicitation just to give you a quick tour. Okay. Okay. So is the website showing up? Okay, great. So we have a research planning website. So if you go to the ARB website and you just search research planning, this should pop up. And you can see that we have a little tab at the top saying submit pre-proposals for funding year 2024, 2025. We have a solicitation landing page. So a lot of the information I gave you today is on this website. So you'll see a little bit of background information, some more information on who can apply, some relevant dates. And here under current solicitation details, you'll see the dates that I already went over today. There's more on the application process. And then I have a section here called currently active, and you will see each of the projects that we're going to talk about today listed here. We have a brief description, the scope of work and scoring criteria that I've been talking about for all 3 projects. And then at the bottom, the frequently asked questions document, the pre-proposal template, and then today's slides. So for example, for this first project, if you go to the scope of work and scoring criteria link, you will see a very detailed description of what we are hoping you respond to in your pre-proposal application. So we have the objectives, the scope of work, description of each of the tasks, and I'll scroll really quick here, deliverables expected for these projects, and scoring criteria at the bottom. So just so you know, that information is available on our website. That's what you would be responding to in your pre-proposal application. And again, on the solicitation landing page, that pre-proposal template is linked here at the bottom in the little documents box. Okay, great. So I'm going to turn it over to Pat, and Pat is going to describe the first project. So please go ahead, Pat.
Okay, thanks, Sonia. Yeah, my name is Pat Wong. I manage the Building Indoor Environment section in the Health Branch in the Research Division. We are very excited about this project, which started from a research concept submission from community members at Bayview Hunters Point. The project itself is to investigate the effectiveness of air cleaning devices on both indoor air quality and possible improvements in health impacts. While there are a lot of indoor sources of air pollution, a lot of what people are exposed to indoors does come from the outdoors, and that's what makes this project unique compared to other previous indoor filtration projects. As many of the residents in the community are aware, there are a multitude of outdoor air pollutant sources in the community. This includes Naval Shipyard, a wastewater treatment plant, industrial rendering plant. In addition, the community straddles two busy freeways with freight trucks and high volume commuter traffic. So on the slide, under desired approaches and outcomes, these are the tasks we expect the pre-proposal to cover. I reiterate Sonia's advice not to just cut and paste information from the scope of work, but come up with what makes your project unique with a high probability of success. Now, for the first one, community engagement and formation of community advisory board, we will pay very close attention to how the investigator plans to implement their community engagement and the formation of the board for the project. Now, if you happen to able to get letter of support or others from community groups or that you may want to partner with, feel free to add that in. It won't be part of the 5-page limit. Other tasks include a literature review of previous work, possible indoor literature in different communities, or monitoring that could be used for this project. Basically, the project will be to establish a PM 2.5 baseline over a 30 or 60-day period, but we can be flexible with that, where residents are provided with first monitoring and then with indoor and outdoor low-cost sensors. And then after that baseline period, there will be PM 2.5 monitoring with a high-efficiency portable air cleaner in the residence. And at the end of the project, both the monitors and the air cleaners will stay with the residents. There will also be surveys to qualitatively assess health impacts of this filtration. There are some additional tasks, and I wouldn't just limit to these three, but possible things that could be also added is to expand health data collection, such as investigating respiratory disease and cardiovascular disease, possibly some interventions to improve how this filtration works, training for use, health education, active messaging during the project. And then, or maybe even a comparison of air quality in Bayview Hunters Point versus non-EJ communities. So that's just of this project. And if you have any questions, please contact Jeffrey Williams, whose email is on the bottom there.
Great, thank you so much, Pat. So we're going to move on to describe the next two projects, and then after we're done with those presentations, then we'll open it up for questions. All right, so I'll hand it over to Nargis to present these two slides.
Hi, I'm Nargis Jarin. I work as an air pollution specialist in the health branch. This project is about California's urban green space and how it is impacting vulnerable communities. So the objective of this urban greening project is to develop methodologies to quantify both the health benefit and ecosystem service benefit for current level and also future projections of urban greening under climate change at the state, regional, and local level. The methods that will be developed is including the estimation of the health impacts of urban green space, which will include mortality, birth outcomes, and other health endpoints. It will also quantify the ecosystem service benefit of urban green space, such as reduced air pollution and urban cooling. In addition, it will also quantify the economic impact related to both health and ecosystem service benefits. This will be calculated for current and also future projected levels from 2025 to 2045 of urban greening. A fourth component of this study will be to look at the distribution of urban greening relating to the vulnerable communities and how future greening scenarios can remedy the inequity in access to urban green space. To assist with the equity issue in urban greening, a community-focused advisory group will be developed This community-focused advisory group will be composed of 6 to 8 individuals that are community representatives, and they will provide a community focus on the health and community benefits of greenness. This research team need to have experience working on health and ecosystem service impacts of greenness and also be familiar with some of the latest methods for assessing levels of greenness, such as land cover classification, statewide individual tree monitoring maps. This team will be working in close collaboration with CARB's staff and will also interact with other contracts that are funded by CARB. This collaboration will result in co-designing the aspects of the contract, which includes the health and ecosystem service impacts, the measurements of impacts, and the methods that will be used to identify the vulnerable communities. This contract will be helpful to present the benefit of nature-based solution programs that increase level of greenness in the state, and this will not be designed as a public-facing tool. The study will help to show the economic value of urban greening as a key action to achieve net zero greenhouse gas emissions. It will also show the disparities in greenness in low-income and other vulnerable communities and will help identify communities in California that should be prioritized for increasing greenness. So that's this about this project. Can we go to the next slide, please? Okay. This project is about non-exhaust emissions in a region with vulnerable communities that are exposed to high traffic. The objective of this non-exhaust emission study is to conduct a regional assessment of the exposure and health risk for brick and tire in PM 2.5 and PM 10. This study will be focused on a region with overburdened communities. It might be possibly in San Joaquin Valley or maybe in another region which is not studied that much, and there is most probably high exposures to any pollutions. There are studies that have been conducted by CARB that help to understand the chemical composition of brick and tire, but these studies are mostly from directly sample sources. So studies are needed to understand the brick and tire impact on ambient air exposure and health. So this need to study ambient air exposure to brick and tire has been recognized by CARB and also by other organizations, including the South Coast Air Quality Management District. MAID 6, which is funded by South Coast District, is including to look at the investigation of brick and tire in ambient air for the first time in the MAIDS program in the South Coast Air Basin and the Coachella Valley. The study that we are proposing need to develop methods to identify and measure exposure to brick and tire at the regional level in ambient air with a reasonable degree of uncertainty. This project will be a very collaborative study working closely with our CARB staff. The study will coordinate and build upon ongoing CARB-funded studies and also help from other agencies, which is including the MAID 6 program to help develop the methods. The investigators will develop a work plan in consultation with the CARB staff. This work plan will determine the research approach and the method that will be used in the study. The methods will be used to identify exposure to brick and tire emissions and to relate those exposure to health effects. Additional information will be provided by sampling campaign in the region, and oxidative stress analysis will also be used to explore if brick and tire are causing higher oxidative stress in particle exposure in disadvantaged communities. Oxidative stress has been found to be linked to increased adverse health effects, such as cancer, respiratory, and cardiovascular disease. The community that will be selected for the study will not only be located near roadways with higher traffic volume, but will also be located near features that result in higher non-exhaust emissions, such as entrance and exit ramps and busy intersections. This study will also have a technical advisory group. The group will help in developing the methodology. The advisor will be composed of 6 to 8 individuals, with half of the group being community representatives and half of the group being academic experts on brake and tire wear research. And this group will provide advice to the study design. The group will meet at the beginning of the project to review and offer advice on the methodology, including the exposure assessment, the health analysis, and the development of the work plan. This group will meet again later in the project to discuss and offer advice on the research finding of the study. The health data that will be used will be to evaluate the association between any exposure and health outcomes. And this will be most probably respiratory and cardiovascular impacts. This will be from existing health databases, such as the number of hospitalization or emergency room visits. The result of this study will help CARB to understand the impact of brake and tire wear emissions on health and particle toxicity. It will also help CARB to understand the effect of brake and tire wear particles in overburdened communities. So that's conclude the 2 slides.
Great. Thank you so much, Nargis.
Thank you.
All right. So we're going to open it up for questions. So I'm going to ask you to use the raised hand feature. And of course, I want you to, please ask questions about these 3 projects specifically, or about the application requirements, and we'll try to answer those questions as best as we can. And yeah, definitely take advantage of the fact that the contract managers for these projects are here now and can answer specific questions about the projects. So when I call on you, please state your name, your affiliation, which project you're interested in, so I can go to that slide and then ask your question. So Jason, I see your hand. Go ahead.
Thank you, Sonia, for the overall introduction of the products, and also thank you, Nargis, for the specific products you introduced to us. I have some questions to what you talked about OVG. One is the Sonia, can you transfer to the second project? So it's a green space. For this one, I think we have worked on the natural working land with microchip. So that one does have the green space, but as you suggested, it's based on the normalized difference vegetation index. So you're proposing over here is specific vegetation types, like for trees. Do you want to go like only to types of trees like these deciduous, evergreen, or mixed tree types, or you want to go even more specific, like what kind of trees, like oak trees? Or so I just want to know the detail that you want to implement if you want to find the ecosystem benefits of the tree types. That's one of the questions. I have more questions on this one too.
Hi, Jason. This is Barbara Weller. I think I can give you some information on your question. So first of all, I just want to emphasize that both of these projects are going to be very collaborative with CARB staff. So a lot of these details are going to be worked out with CARB staff and in conjunction with other studies that are ongoing. The main thing that we are looking for in this greenness assessment is we're looking for a more detailed assessment of greenness, something more related to tree canopy. You're talking about even greater detail of looking at specific tree types. But really what we want to do is to make sure that this is not just greenness, not just NDVI, which really doesn't differentiate between the type of greenness, but something that is more related to urban greening, because of a lot of our urban greening programs are specific to tree canopy. Other details of this will be worked out as we work out the project.
Yeah, tree canopy, Barbara, thank you for your clarification. Tree canopy, you mean the cover, the cover of the trees through the area. I mean, like you look from the top to down, or you want the canopy coverage of different tree types.
I'm having trouble hearing you a little bit, but I think that what you're asking is,
It's that a tree canopy coverage percentage based on like
right. Coverage by tree canopy. Yes.
Okay.
So there in fact is a contract that we have underway that is looking at ways of measuring tree canopy. And that contract is probably going to be something that we would like to collaborate with as we go through and develop the exposure assessment for this. But the main thing, like I said, is we want to look at something that relates more to our programs, so more tree canopy rather than NDVI, which is really just at a much higher level of greenness.
Okay, thank you. Sonia, could I provide more questions, or should I wait?
No, go ahead. You can ask your follow-up questions.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. For the dose response function for the natural working land, we also use the BMAP, right? But like mortality, preterm birth, low birth weight, those are not. Some of them it would be relevant to US, but not totally relevant, or not as close as what we want for California. So for this project, you want to use burn maps, or you want to use the data set specific to California, like the HPID has individual hospitalization at the individual levels, right? And also best outcome from CDPH. You want to derive the dose response functions through the those state agency data sets, or you want to use burn map to do this kind of analysis?
Well, I think whichever system is used, we want to make sure that it's most closely related to California, and also that it's more closely related to the exposure assessment. So one of the things that we're asking people to do is to do a literature search and look at the ways that other people have qualified dose response relationships with greenness. And so that is going to be the first task for this. So we're really going to, like I said, work very closely with the investigators in this project to develop all aspects of the study, including the dose response relationships. But, whether it ends up being one particular study or a meta-analysis from a series of studies, we do want to make sure that the greenness assessment is correlated with the types of greenness assessments that we're looking at. I know a lot of the literature looks at NDVI for the greenness assessment for previous studies. So that's one of the things that we want people to look at very closely. But we're going to work with the investigators on that.
Okay, thank you, Barbara. Last final point. So for the scenarios, if you want it for those most vulnerable communities, you wanted to, like you say, have a scenario to increase the green cover, or what you would envision? I mean, is it the green to the regional green average, or to what level you would expect for those ones if you want to have the EJ plot, right?
Right. And since we'll have a committee that will help with that, I'm sorry, not a committee, but a group, an advisory group that will help with that, because that will be part of the study. And we'll kind of determine the priorities and the the best way to promote greenness in these communities. We want this to be related to our programs, our greenness programs, and not just an arbitrary assessment of, if you increase greenness by 5%, then you get, this health benefit. So we want to try to correlate this with our programs. Like I said, this is going to be very correlated with CARB, and we're going to work very closely with the researchers as we go through and develop this proposal.
Okay, thank you, Barbara, for your responses. Appreciate it.
Great. Thank you so much for your questions, Jason. Was that your last question?
Yes, for this project, I will wait for other people's. If I still
Yes.
have time, I will raise some different questions for a different project.
Okay. Yeah, Daryl, I saw your hand up, but you put it down. Was your question answered?
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I was mostly asking about these scenarios moving forward, and then also I just wanted to follow up on the species level impacts, and I'm wondering like how much of an interest there is in developing that, because especially in regards to air pollution, you have a conifer versus an oak versus eucalyptus. You have pretty distinct differences in their contributions to air pollution, and certainly air pollution is multifaceted. So I was wondering how you wanted that to be addressed, and is the opportunity for doing field measurements to actually evaluate air pollution in particular, but some of these other ecosystem services, is that on the cards? Or is it more using kind of generic models that relate tree greenness to benefits?
Okay, I think my mic is still on. Yes. Yes. So we didn't, when we envisioned this study, we weren't envisioning looking at different species of trees. But I think that if that is something that we could incorporate in that, we would see if we could incorporate that into the greenness assessment. It might make a difference in our programs and in the types of trees that are selected. So I think that would be a possibility. But again, like I said, whoever is selected for this study is going to be working very closely with us in developing all of the details of this study. And I'm sorry, can you repeat your second question?
Sure. Would you be
So
looking for field measurements to actually evaluate, like in situ, some of these ecosystem service benefits, including the impacts to air pollution? Or are you looking for proposals to more use like existing models?
We were thinking more of existing models, but if people are proposing a methodology that would be cost efficient to do field measurements, then that would be a possibility. But we were thinking more of existing models and existing programs that could be modified to be used for this. The main thing that we want to do is we want to be able to quantify these ecosystem service benefits, not qualify them. So that I think that's one of the most important things. I want to be able to actually, make sure that these are quantifiable rather than a qualitative type of assessment.
Okay, thank you for that. And just to follow up just a little, so are you looking for validation of these models as well?
Well, I think validation or explanation of the limitations of the models are always going to be part of any type of model that you use. So that would definitely be something that we would want to include if that's what you mean by validation of the model. Or
Yeah,
are you thinking about a field campaign to validate the model?
Well, or a lot of the models that are in the literature are coarse-grained, and I really get that we want to quantify these benefits in a way,
Right.
and so in that sense, like actually validating some of like measurements in the field or some other way beyond just like cross-model comparison. So, so thank you for your answers. I appreciate that.
Right. So, it depends on, what people are proposing. But yeah, we certainly would want to make sure that the models would be valid for the quantitation of the assessments.
Thank you.
Great, thanks for that question, those questions, Daryl. Alyssa, I see your hand. Go ahead. Oh, you're still muted.
Sorry about that. I lowered my hand, but I didn't take myself off mute. So I'm hearing that you want to quantify the health effects in the greening program, in the greening and the canopy and the deployment of greening in spaces throughout the state. Are you looking for the health effects that are self-reported, or are you looking for more of data that is, or outcomes that are more secondary kinds of sources of data?
Well, it depends on, if you can use that to quantify. So, we were thinking of pre-existing database, everything from pre-existing databases, if you're projecting a survey type of data, you would have to be able to extrapolate that to the whole state. So, that might be somewhat difficult. So think about what we're asking, that we're doing this at the state, regional, and local level, and that we want the quantitation of it. And so I think that is going to define to a certain degree some of the health endpoints that you would be able to use.
Okay. And then my other question is that you mentioned connections to your programs. Can you say more about which programs, and if those connections to the programs would include any outcomes that could be communication related for the programs to receive?
I'm not totally sure what the question is.
So if you want to make the health connections, and you said you wanted to connect to programs, right? The programs that you have in communities.
Mm.
So is there any part of this that would include results that would be ways to connect through programs,
Oh,
to
yeah.
create community engagement?
Right. This is not really going to be something that's going to develop like a public-facing tool,
Okay.
or something like that. What we really are looking at is to be able to look at the different programs that we have to increase greenness in California, and to be able to show the benefits of those programs, the greenness programs. So it's a little bit of a different focus than you're talking about there. I think you're talking about more of a public outreach, public-facing tool, which is really not what we're envisioning with this particular project. Yeah.
That's really helpful. So it's more like the tree planting kinds of
Mm-hmm.
programs.
Right. Exactly.
Got
The
it.
programs that would increase the greenness, and to be able to show the many benefits of those different programs.
Okay. Thank you. That's very helpful.
Okay. Thank you.
If I can add on to that a little bit, for all of our projects, we always require plain language outreach deliverables at the end,
Yes.
sometimes at the beginning, sometimes at the end as well. And so especially if there's community engagement components in these projects, we have to make sure they're plain language, sometimes, translated depending on the communities you're talking to. So that is part of it, that the results should be widely available and accessible to everyone. And so those results, once approved and, turned into good outreach deliverables, then can be used by those communities for their own advocacy. Like if they want to, like, for example, get a program implemented in their area through like their city council or whatever, their local air district or whatever it is they're doing, then these good plain language translated and accessible outreach deliverables would be available to them for that.
Right. Right. Thank you, Sonia. That was helpful. That is definitely, part of the aspect. But I do want to make sure that there's no confusion that this is not developing, sort of a public tool that the public can, use to assess greenness in their neighborhood. It's really going to be related to greenness in all of the neighborhoods of California. However, because one of the things that we want to be able to do with this is to show the disparity in greenness between neighborhoods, and then the increase in health benefits that you will get with increasing greenness in overburdened communities. So that aspect is definitely involved in that, as well as, like I said, the community advisory group that will be part of the project.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks everyone for all these great questions. Are there questions about that project or the other two projects from anyone else? Hi, Tom. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing that, but yeah, I see your hand.
No, you pronounce it very well. I was just like, wondering if this specific project are you looking at it from an analysis perspective or also modeling? Yeah. Is it like are you gonna be like a funding for analysis, or actually developing a model that would look into different scenarios from the delta emissions? Yeah.
Which project are you referring to?
Are you
if I may
referring to
ask?
the current one? The one we have on the slide deck? Yeah.
Oh, the greenness project?
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, we definitely envisioned that there would be a development of methodologies for the analysis. I think that's what you were asking, if it's only using current analysis models, or if there would be the possible development of analysis methodologies. Did I answer your question?
Yes. Sorry, my computer is a little bit slow down.
Oh, okay.
Would that include using tools like InMap, for instance?
We did not specify all of the different tools that would be used. So, it's up to the investigators to tell us tools that they think would be useful. We did, mention some of the different tools that have been used in the past, and of course, the literature review is going to help with that. But we're not proposing a method at this point. We're asking the investigators to tell us methods that they feel that are going to be the best methodologies to use. But we need to understand that this is something that can work at the state, regional, and the local level, and that is going to be able to look at current levels of greenness as well as future levels of greenness. So, there are a lot of different aspects to this project. It's a fairly complex project, looking at the health assessment as well as the ecosystem services assessment. So, I would envision that there would be a number of different tools and models that people would need to look at in developing the methodology.
Thank you. That was really helpful.
Great. Thank you, Hi Tom, for your question. Any other questions?
Sonia, can I just wanted to note,
Yeah.
and I'm Bonnie Holmes-Jen, also with the health branch in the research division, and we do have other CARB experts that are working in this area that will be collaborating on this contract. And if Adam Moreno or his staff wanted to add anything, please feel free to jump in at this point. I think Barbara Weller has given some great responses, but I just wanted to provide that space if Adam has anything to add on any of the questions that have been raised.
Hi, yeah, I'm Adam Moreno, and I'm the manager of our nature-based strategy section. And so we're the ones, I think, primarily that might be using this information. And Yeah, I didn't hear all of the questions. I just sort of tuned in right here at the end. But I'd say, generally speaking, what we want to be able to do with this contract is find a better way to really quantify all of the benefits of urban greening in general. Like like it says here on the slide, both currently, like being able to quantify, all the benefits we're getting, and then also under future scenarios. So, you know, we would set the scenarios doing through a process in the throughout the state, collaborating with all of our different state agencies and partners, and going through a public process to define what scenarios of urban greening would look like. And then we need to be able to quantify of course, the carbon and GHG benefits from that, but then also all of the co-benefits, and especially these health impacts from that. So that hopefully would, include, decreasing urban heat island, things like that. And any other health, and I mean, there's some examples here, also reduced air pollution, things like that. But it could also be quantifying the negative impacts that these things might have. So we don't want to pre-assume that, all urban greening may be good. There's also VOC considerations with urban greening also. So taking all of that into account as well. So anyways, yeah, appreciate my colleagues here in Research Division putting this forward, and everybody listening, and any contractors or potential contractors that may submit to this. So looking forward to seeing what you all come up with. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Adam, for jumping in, giving that context, and thanks, Bonnie, for also jumping in. All right, I see Jason. I see your hand. Go for it.
Okay, Adam, nice to see you again over here. So this is getting bigger and bigger now. So are we going to want to also focus on the negative effect, like the impact of wildfires? So those are going to be included, or just focus the positive impacts of the urban greenness?
So this is really just about urban greening. We want to sort of narrow down and focus in on that particular impact. But just like it says here, we want to understand how urban greening itself affects air pollution wherever it comes from. So we don't want to necessarily focus on where the air pollution may come from. It's really like, how might, some unit area of urban greening change air quality outcomes. So yeah, so this is really about the urban greening, not thinking about, or not, not focused on wildfire specifically.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Jason, do you have an additional question?
It's question not to this one. Is it possible to move to the next one for also, not just will be the manager? Okay, so this one on the basically brake and the tire wears, right? Mike Jarrett did one. I was not involved in any of that. It's 17RD012. So that was for SoCal. So this one, you want to shift from SoCal to Central King Valley. Is it possible to redo it at LA or SoCal?
I don't know why I'm having trouble understanding or hearing you a little bit. Maybe it's my phone, but I think you were saying, would it be possible to do this study in Southern California rather than in the San Joaquin Valley? Was that your question, Jason?
Yes. Sorry, my internet connection is not good.
Oh, that's so much better. I'm hearing you much better now. Well, the reason that we were really thinking about the San Joaquin Valley is because this is a fairly understudied area. And as you probably know, that the MATES project is going to be concentrated in Southern California. So we were really thinking about a different area particularly thinking about perhaps the San Joaquin Valley, where we have overburdened communities and exposures to break and tire wear. And our previous study, as you know, was in Southern California. So that's why we're thinking more of the San Joaquin Valley.
Okay, great.
Or some other area of California.
Yeah. Oh, sure. Thank you. The other thing is that because I check what Mike has done, it's actually quite extensive or very comprehensive. So I was thinking if I write a pre-proposal inviting Mike Jerry's group to do the measurements, could we basically copy or redo the measurements, even though it would be in different regions? Is that still workable? So you have the PM25, PM10, or you also have the oxidative stress potential markers and those. So it's in that way because they have done so much for SoCal, but even though we shift to a different location, the methodology over the development is very established, I think.
Right. I think you're saying repeating the study, the Mike Jarrett study in a different area.
Yeah.
And we really want to expand beyond the study that was previously done, because one of the things that we want to be assured of is that we're really able to link the break and tire wear with health, and to be sure that we're actually being able to more closely link the PM 2.5 with the break and tire wear source. And the past study really used mostly metals as a tracer, and we know that there are other sources for these metals besides just break and tire wear. So we are envisioning an expansion of the modeling system to be able to be more assured that the break and tire wear is the source for the components that are being measured, and really thinking about looking at other health outcomes. The health outcome that was used in the previous study was birth outcomes. So we're thinking of looking at respiratory or cardiovascular outcomes. So I think we're thinking of kind of expanding, you know, beyond that study and progressing into an area where we're really going to look more comprehensively at the components of break and tire wear, and being able to develop an exposure profile or a chemical profile that really is more tightly linked to break and tire wear.
Thank you, Barbara, for your clarification. That's really helpful. So basically, Mike Jerry, what he did, he was use kind of like it's kriging, right, with external drift. So I know what you're saying. There's uncertainty. You're not only the sources from the specific focusing on the break and the tire wear. So I was thinking, you know the Yang Li from Baylor. She has very good knowledge how to do source proportions based on specifically the road traffic and also the emissions from CARB has those break and tire wear emissions. So we were thinking might be able to do source apportionment, only focus on the sources specifically based on the break and the tire wear. That's one. And also because I have been working on the another CARB project, so it's using the OSHP data. I think that would be a very good fit. But I'm just figuring out what, if possible, I would do. So you think the using the OSHP data should be representative of the California population, right? We could also add like you have before, like the birth data, mortality data, those are all easily available.
Right. Pre-existing databases are fine to be used in the study. We really want to have the investigator in the pre-proposal really assure us that they can link these link to the break-in tire as a source with a reasonable amount of uncertainty. So to be able to do that. So I think that's really the most important thing. And obviously, again, this is going to be a very collaborative study. We have a number of studies ongoing looking at components of break-in tire wear. There is a whole program involved in CARB to develop break-in tire wear for the emissions assessment. You know, those studies are ongoing, and we want to be sure that this project collaborates with all of that ongoing and previous work, and as well as that thinks about some of the other studies that are ongoing, including the MATE-6 study, which is going to be, you know, measuring in ambient air. So there's a real difference in measuring break-in tire wear components directly from brake pads or directly from a dynamometer versus looking at ambient air. So we want to make sure that whatever methodology is developed for this study, that the investigators can give us assurance that this can be done with a reasonable degree of uncertainty.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Thanks everyone for all these great questions, and thank you, Barbara, for fielding so many of them. All right.
She has too much knowledge. I've been in touch.
If anyone else wants to jump in from CARB, they're more than welcome to do so.
All right. I see a hand from Dennis. Dennis, go ahead. I don't hear you yet. I think you still need to unmute, Dennis. I still haven't heard you speak yet.
Okay. Can you hear me?
I hear you now.
Okay. Yeah, my name's Dennis Fitz, University of California, Riverside, and I've made a lot of studies of emissions from roadways behind vehicles. And a lot of it is not break-in tire wear, it's just plain old road dust. So I have two questions. One is, in this study, are you looking for actual field measurements of break-in tire wear? And the second question is, do you want it separated from the road dust, which includes a lot of dirt and other materials? So those are the two questions I have.
Right. And yeah, I know it's hard to separate, you know, some of the components, but we're hoping for the investigators to develop a methodology, ideally to, yes, separate out the different components. But you know, if it is felt by the investigators that this is not going to be possible, if they could just tell us, you know, if they would be able to separate brake wear from tire wear, for example. If it would be something like tire wear and road dust versus brake wear, you know, but I think the ideal thing is to be able to separate out the brake wear and the tire wear as a source. And I think you had a second question beyond that.
Yes.
So if you could repeat.
I want to know if you expect actual field measurements.
Oh, yes, field measurements. Yeah, we would anticipate that probably a sampling campaign in the field might be useful within this study, but it needs to be related to the development of the model. So if the field campaign is going to be helpful for the development of the modeling system, to be able to look at the source, you know, because what we really need to do ultimately is to come up with an ambient exposure for break-in tire wear that can be correlated to health. So the sampling campaign we consider to be something that would provide additional information to help the methodology and the modeling system.
Okay, I can see where break-in tire wear is really the main focus here, but there will be road dust involved too, and we can't just ignore it.
Right, exactly. So, you know, the investigator would have to talk about how they are going to be contending with that.
Okay, thank you.
Great, thanks for that question, Dennis. Jason, I see your hand. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry, too many questions. Barbara, thank you, Dennis, for raising that question. Is it for the field measurements? Is it emission focused or concentration focused measurements?
Well, the field measurements we feel are part of the development of the exposure assessment. So,
Also the
so you want to
concentrations.
think about it as part of a to assist in the development of the exposure assessment.
So the field measurement should
informing the methodology to develop and model the ambient exposures. If that makes
thank
sense.
you. So
if that makes sense.
the measurements would be yeah. So the measurement would be in fields close to highways, so not like to those lab so some of the samples can do that, can do through the lab, like
Sorry, breaking up a bit.
Yeah, Jason, I'm also having a hard time hearing you. You're breaking up. It
Yeah.
sounds a little robotic.
in a lab to test this. Is that better?
Now it is, but yeah,
Now
we
it is,
we
but
missed
we lost
everything.
you. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, I
Sorry.
went to a location very close to my router. So Barbara, so if you have a measurement, field measurement, you want it to be physically in locations close to the roadway, or some of the, because some of the field measurements can be in a lab, right? You just run a vehicle based on the function of the vehicles.
Right.
Yeah,
So what we want people to do in this pre-proposal is really to come up with their modeling system and to tell us how the sampling will inform their modeling system. And it could include, thinking about, laboratory sampling as well as sampling in the field. So the main thing is, what is the modeling system going to tell you? Why is the modeling system needed in your study, and how is it going to help to develop the methodology for the exposure profiles?
thank you.
Thank you, Jason. Gladys, I see your hand. Go for it.
Yes, I have an ionizer for buildings. If I worked in collaboration with the university and I tweaked my ionizer for a vehicle, is that sort of what you're trying to accomplish?
This is not an in-vehicle study. This is a study of ambient air.
Ambient air. Okay, then I have the way to address the issue. I would like to get Mr. Fitz information, since it requires a college or university tie.
I think that might be a question for you, Sonia.
So yeah, these meetings are a good way to connect with other researchers. So if you are looking for partnerships, or if you're offering any kind of expertise and you're looking for a UC or a CSU researcher, you can feel free to use the chat function. You can send a direct message to individual people or to everyone, introducing yourself, your affiliation or your expertise, or what project you're interested in. So do feel free to use the chat to do that. And then again, like if you go to your chat, you can see that you can type a message to everyone or to individual people in this meeting. So feel free to use that function. It sounds to me, Gladys, like you're interested in working with Dennis Fitz. I think I heard that, if I might have heard you correctly. Is that right? So yeah.
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
great.
Thank you.
So yeah, this is sort of an open forum to ask us questions, but also again to connect with each other if you're looking for collaboration. So yeah, feel free to use the chat function to reach out to each other. All right. Are there any other questions about these 3 projects? While you're pondering that, just as a quick reminder, I did provide a link in the chat for our solicitation landing page. And just in case you heard about this through one of the other listservs that we did send this out on, you can join the research activities listserv to hear about any kind of research program related events, meetings, or calls for proposals, concepts, etc. So I provided the link to the GovDelivery listserv forum, and you can choose a bunch of different options that are related to CARB programs, and you have to specifically choose research activities to make sure you hear about research program related meetings, etc. So those 2 links are in there for you to use. So yeah, any other questions about the projects or the application process? Great, and I see an introduction from Charlene. Thank you so much, Charlene, for introducing yourself and providing your information. We'll give another minute or 2 to see if people have questions or want to make introductions like Charlene did. Let's see. So again, I'll go back and quickly remind you about some of the dates. So if you do intend to submit a pre-proposal, please, we do appreciate a letter of interest sent to us. Again, it's just a simple email. You're just addressing us at our general research email saying, hey, I am so-and-so from this institution, university, etc., and I'm going to apply for this, just so you know. And that's really helpful for us to track interest in each of these projects. And then the full pre-proposals are due August 12th. So again, you want to use those pre-proposal templates that we provide on our solicitation landing page. So those are the 2 upcoming dates that are important. And the recording for this meeting will be available on the solicitation landing page as soon as I can manage to get it up there. The slides are already there now. And again, the scope of work descriptions and scoring criteria for the 3 projects are there now. All right. Any other questions? I'm not seeing any hands. So I'm going to end the meeting. If you needed to look at the chat one more time, please do so now. Otherwise, thank you so much, all of you, for attending and for all of your questions. Again, the slides have contact information for contract managers for each of the individual projects if you have follow-up questions. We generally won't answer very detailed questions over email on the projects because we need to make it as fair as possible to anyone applying. So coming to this meeting is very important to ask your questions, but you can ask clarifying questions about the information that's already on the website. But we won't answer really specific questions like whether the method you're thinking of proposing is a good one. Like, you just have to submit your pre-proposal and roll the dice, right? But yeah, please be responsive to the scope of work as much as possible. We provide a lot of details there. All right, so with that, I'm going to end the meeting for all. Again, I appreciate everyone's participation, and hopefully we're going to hear from some of you with some really great pre-proposals.
Thank you. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.